Okay, so getting back into our coverage over the X-Men, we do pick up with Wolverine issue number 102 and 103. Now, here's the thing, because these two issues are, of course, a two-part story arc, but the last two issues we're going to cover for Wolverine before we actually dive into the Onslaught event, meaning that the next few issues you see when it comes to us covering Wolverine will actually be part of the crossover we're going to cover very soon on the channel, which honestly, by this point, I'm kind of ready to go ahead and just dive into that crossover because we have been covering a lot of different things leading into the next big X-Men event. But with all that being said, when it comes to the first chapter of this two-part story arc, we're kind of given two stories at once here when it comes to Elektra and Wolverine. Around this time in Marvel Comics, when it came to Stick, he has sent Elektra on an adventure to kind of help Wolverine get on the right path, which she will be able to do in this two-part story arc, but only in the second chapter. In the first chapter is her kind of playing a different role here, a role of kind of giving us a life story of hers. Now, here's the thing, because she's playing the role of a narrator. She's not really there at all, and we're not really given any images of this life story, but it's her kind of telling us this life story of hers to kind of get a better idea of who she is, but also this person who was very close to her. Now, while she's telling us this story, you have Wolverine going on a completely different adventure, which of course will lead to him meeting go with Elektra by the end of the first chapter going into the second chapter. Now, this life story is kind of spread out in the entire book, but I kind of want to go ahead and wrap it up in one not single sentence, but one quick statement here. And the reason why, because I want to kind of shift our focus more on Wolverine kind of being put back on the right track thanks to Elektra. Now, the life story she's giving us is really more about a guy known as Stavros, and I really hope I do pronounce that correctly. Now, for Stavros, he was technically a gardener for her father. But the question was, where did he come from before that? And we do learn that he was some kind of mercenary, back in World War II, where of course he was going after Nazis. Now, there was a point in time where he was confronted by Elektra's mother, who did point a gun at him and summon him. But after that moment right there, it kind of led into her and him being able to build a bond with one another, where of course Stavros was able to build a bond with Elektra's father. Now, of course, as time passed by, her mother died and left her behind with her father. Now, when it came to her father, he believed what's best for her was to kind of begin to work with Stavros in the garden, which she did. But over time, she began to learn more about his life story, the whole idea of being a mercenary back in World War II. Now, there was a point in time where you did have these two killers try to kill off Elektra and her father as well. Now, here's the thing, because when it came to the older killer, he wanted to kill off both Elektra and her father. The younger one wanted to spare her life. He was not down with the idea of killing off children. Now, luckily for Elektra and her father, Stavros was there to help protect her and her father. But he did kill off the older killer, but not the younger one. Now, he wanted to kill off the younger one, but Elektra stopped him and said, listen, the younger assassin here, he didn't want to kill me. He spared my life, and so I feel like I should spare his. Now, after that, you had this young killer become like a son to Stavros, but also kind of teaching a lesson for Elektra. The whole idea that when it comes to life, when it comes to redemption, it's not free in life. You have to pay it back. Now, for Elektra, she's kind of wondering, what does that mean? Like, who do you pay that to? And you have Stavros tell her you pay it back over to the universe. And so that was kind of like the entire story of what she was trying to tell us in the first chapter. There was a few more pieces I left out, but technically they're not really important for the overall story. Now, we can transition over to Wolverine and what he's doing at the moment. You see, around this time in Marvel Comics, when it came to Wolverine, and really guys, just in case for the ones out there who don't like me repeating myself, I'm sorry, but just in case we do have anybody just jumping into the middle of our coverage over the X-Men, I kind of want to make sure they understand what's going on with this character, because there was a lot going on with Wolverine. You see, for Wolverine around this time, he had lost the adamantium on his bones. Why? Well, thanks to Magneto, an event called Fatal Attractions. Now, when it came to that event right there, it was huge. But through Charles Xavier, we had learned that when it came to Wolverine being a mutant, the original plan for his mutation was supposed to slowly turn him into a wild beast, a wild animal. But thanks to adamantium, it stopped that process from happening. The problem is that, well, Magneto, when he had ripped off the adamantium off Wolverine's bone, that process was able to once again continue, which it did. And so by this point, Wolverine is now fully a savage character. Now, technically, Wolverine was trying his best to stay normal, but thanks to Tyler Dayspring, the son of Cable, who was trying to bond adamantium back on the bones of Wolverine, and when it came to Wolverine rejecting the bonding process, it got rid of the last piece of humanity that Wolverine had. And so, of course, he was now fully savage. And so by this point, he's just out there in the city. You see, for this story, we kind of shift our focus onto a young family. Now, we're kind of left to believe that she is a single mother trying to raise two boys, an older one and a younger one, and she believes her older one stays out of trouble, except when she leaves for the night, you do have the older boy leave the house, and we kind of find out that he's part of some kind of gang, and most likely dealing with drugs, it seems like. But when it comes to Wolverine, he does run into the mother at first. Now, with him kind of running into the mother and she sees him on the streets kind of begging for money, begging for help, she does give him some money to kind of help him out, which does kind of build a somewhat bond between the two characters, even though she quickly walks away. But this moment right here is very important for the end of the story. And here's the reason why, because with her older son being part of a gang, unfortunately, they take part of a gunfight. Now, with this gunfight happening between the two gangs, you have innocent people dying left and right. Now, when it comes to her older son, he does run away, but you have Wolverine chase after him. Now, the reason why you have Wolverine chasing after him, well, because he killed innocent people. But Wolverine does pick up the scent of the mother on the young boy and kind of realize who he is. And so you have Wolverine take the young boy back over to where his mom is at to kind of show him, like, your gang being in that gang war and having those innocent people die, your mom and younger brother could have joined those other innocent people who died thanks to your gunfight against the other gang. Now, you do have the young boy realize that he should leave the gang life behind. Now, while you have the two characters walking away, one of the rival gang members tries to get the jump on the young boy, but luckily for him, Elektra was there to stop him and kill him off, to save the young boy and Wolverine's life. And so as we get into the second chapter, we're really picking up with Wolverine climbing on top of this building. Now, once he does arrive on the top of the building, he's then confronted by Elektra. Now, for Elektra, this is her beginning to try to bring Wolverine back on the right path again, as she says, or as Styx says to do. And so she asks him two questions. The first is that, what is your name? Now, he does not say Logan. He says Wolverine. And so when he says that, she says, that's a name of an animal. That's a name of a beast, not a name for a man. She then asks him another question like, okay, cool. Who climbed the building? Was it a man or was it a beast? Now, for Wolverine, he is unable to answer that question. Elektra goes out of her way to hit him. Now, he does try to attack her, but she's able to easily dodge the attack. And you did have Elektra lead Wolverine into this room. Now, what Elektra is trying to do here with Wolverine is trying to bring the man back out of him, because right now what she sees and what she's trying to tell us is that Wolverine is a powerful weapon, kind of like a samurai sword. But the thing is, he's still a man, a martial artist. And so what she's hoping is to bring out the martial artist that she knows about Wolverine, and hopefully the man side of him will follow along as well to bring the good out of him once again. And so you didn't have Elektra go out of her way to lock Wolverine in this room. Now for Wolverine, he's not really trying to think of how to get out of this situation. It's just him banging at the door over and over again. But for Elektra, it's her kind of understanding what's going on with Wolverine, because technically she was in his place once before when it came to her losing her mother at a very young age. She found love, Matt Murdock, and then she lost him. And then she also lost her father as well. Her world has shattered so many times where she tried her best to find different ways to cope with her loss, but unfortunately it brought her down a dark path. And so she kind of realized what Wolverine is going through. This man has gone through so much, and unfortunately he has now gone down a dark path, and hopefully she can guide him back to the right path once again. Now you have Wolverine kind of realize that he letting his rage take over his body. And so once he stopped letting the rage take over and started focusing on basically using his meditation to kind of focus his mind, he realized he can use his claws as a way to get out of this room. Now, once you have Wolverine being able to break out of that room, he sees this scroll that is technically incomplete. Now, the first two symbols represent forest and wind, but you didn't have Wolverine remember the third means mountain. Now, the only reason why he remembers this because he remembers his master, Ogon. And basically, it was saying that you had to be majestic as the forest, swift as the wind, immovable as the mountain. And so once you have Wolverine being able to remember every single piece of that scroll, he's then ready for his final test. And really, it's more of Elektra still trying to bring out the man in him. But what she's trying to say here is that when it comes to a fight, when it comes to an animal, usually animals don't think of their next move when they're in a battle or something. But for men, they try to think of their next move to allow them to win the battle against the person they're currently fighting against, hoping to bring the man side of Wolverine back out to block the savage side in him. But on top of that, it's also her saying like, it's harder to not use your weapons against somebody rather than go ahead and use those weapons against the person you are fighting. Basically saying, Wolverine, don't use the sword. Try to find a different way to defeat me. Try to use your hands rather than the sword, because using the sword right there kind of shows that you're showing your savage side there, because it's easier to use a weapon against your opponent. It's also easier to change your ways. And so it's Wolverine kind of realizing what she is trying to say to him. And so once he realized that what she's trying to say, he begins to act more like a man rather than an animal. And so the book kind of ends on that note right there. Yes, it is a very short story, but at the same time, it's kind of the book getting us ready for what's to come down the road for Wolverine, but also for Elektra as well. But either way, this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.